Hi there, this is a video accompanying the Joomla tutorial series developing an MVC component, and in this step we're looking at adding a feed. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about just what a feed is, just in case you're not aware of that or unaware of the Joomla capabilities. Basically the idea is a client sends an HTTP request in the same way as a browser to a URL, and the feed server will respond not with an HTML document but with an XML file, and the XML file will be in the RSS format. So for example, you can see in this Wikipedia page about RSS, and you can go down to an example of what you get as the XML document, and there's some stuff up here at the top, and then there's a number of items associated with a number of items in the feed. RSS is kind of like the older version of the protocol. A newer version would be Atom. And basically that is all there is to it. I'll have a look at a couple of feeds. Here, for example, is, let me go back there. Here, for example, is Sky News, and it's got a number of feeds. And if I click on this, if you go down to the bottom, you can see which is the URL we're going to click on here. And I click on technology, and here it comes back with that XML document containing, as it says up the top, title and description, all that sort of stuff. And then we have individual items. There's one item, there's another item, and each item is like an item of news, got title, description, some links and images as well. Here's a similar thing from the BBC. I've got the development tools on here. I'm going to click on the technology. And there you can see the URL that we're going to click on. On technology, and this again is another RSS feed. Now it looks more like a web page, and the reason for that is that if we look in our browser debug tools, here is our RSS document. We've sent an HTML request to this URI, and we've got back as a response this this XML document. But also what we have within it is, if we look at this line here, it's got XML style sheet, and this is an XSLT document, which really kind of describes how an XML document should be formatted in an HTML-like way. And so the next request that my browser has sent has been to that XSLT URL. You can see it there, and it's got back as a response this XSLT document, which is kind of a bit, I suppose, like a Joomla template. It tells you what to put in where, and you can read all about XSLT on this document here. So there's a couple of examples. We also have got this in our Hello World tutorial. So if you have implemented the steps of the tutorial, you will see a category page, something like this. And this is the new thing, the syndication feed. And if I click on that, you can see down the bottom what we're going to be going for. Sorry, let me do that again. You can see it's format feed type equals RSS, and if we click on that, and it comes back with a document. And if I open that, I'm going to open this in Notepad++, and there you can see our XML document, and it's got the title up at the top, And here it's got the individual items for the individual hello world, goodbye records, hello world, goodbye world records, and all that sort of stuff. And that is basically what a feed is. As I say, it's really just a feed server is responding to an HTTP request, and it's sending back the response as an XML file in this RSS or ATOM format. But the use of this is with a feed or news aggregator. So you can get these and you can have those on your phone or your PC or whatever. And this can then be configured to go off and get news articles from various sources around the internet, so that you can have a look at these for, say, in the morning, and it will have brought back all of the details from all these different sites, and you can look through your aggregator and see articles of interest that you might follow up on, rather than having to go to each of these web servers and interrogate them individually through the web pages of those web servers. So that's the whole purpose of it. As an example, I have got Thunderbird here, and I've got you've got a news feed aggregator type functionality in Thunderbird, and I can manage subscriptions. What I'm going to do is actually I'm going to go back here. I'm going to right click on this copy link location. I'm going to go into manage subscriptions, and I'm going to paste that, and I'm going to add that, which is basically our hello world records there in our feed. And there you can see it's added there all of the hello world records. So as I say, it is performing the function of this aggregator and collecting data from feeds from each of those sources there. Here's the BBC one and the Sky one. And you can see if you put on tools and developer tools, it should come up here. When I do get messages there, you'll see the get actually in the network, sending to our URL, which is just on my local host here, and coming back as a response, it's got the payload, which is the XML document. So the aggregator is really doing the same as what we've just been doing in the browser, no more than that. Now, Joomla does have another capability relating to feeds, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about that, just because it's similar enough to be a bit confusing. So the idea behind this news feeds is that you can have your Joomla site displaying feeds from other sources. So for example, this is basically a clean Joomla installation, but with all of the pre-prepared data actually pre-installed on it. And you get this about Joomla menu structure. And if you go down to that, you can see news feeds components. Now you may find that a number of these are just set to unpublished, so you have to actually go in and publish them. But it has a number of news feeds there, and if I click on, for example, a single news feed here, it's going to Joomla announcements. I think I changed that because it was something which was out of date, which is no longer supported by Joomla. But you can also put in, for example, BBC Technology News, and it goes across to the BBC Technology News. So what is happening here is that this is my Joomla server, which is basically this. And when I click on one of these news feeds, it's going behind the scenes, it's going to that feed server, for example, the BBC website, and it's coming back getting the XML response in RSS format, and then it's formatting the data from that XML into that web page. So to set up a news feed like that, it's kind of like a two-step process. You need to first of all define a news feed, and some of these, the Joomla ones, are already defined in the pre-installed data. I've also set one up to be the hello world messages, and if I click on that, all you have to do is get the URL of the feed and put it into there. So that's the same, it's just the URL that is presented behind that little RSS symbol. And once you've got that in there, you can set up a menu item to point to that. And I've got a hello world messages menu item which points to that news feed. And then I can go along and click on that menu item, and it's going to go to that feed server behind the scenes, which is my other hello world instance, other Joomla instance. This is my Joomla test instance. This is my hello world instance. So it's going behind the scenes to my hello world instance, picking off the RSS feed, getting back the XML response, and then outputting the data. So as I say, it can be a little confusing because there are two different things. This isn't what we're doing in this step. What we're doing in this step is just providing this bit here. But having provided it, we can then use it in this way by setting it up as a news feed within another Joomla instance. So in closing, I'd really just wanted to talk a little through the code on the page. It should be fairly straightforward. We've got some configuration changes, and really all that is, it's in our Hello World configuration. It's setting up this integration tab and defining whether that feed link should be shown, i.e. whether this should be shown here. Once you do set that up, you can see that the Joomla will display that. And if you put on the, whoops, sorry, get that right, ampersand. If I show the template positions, you can see I just put that in template position 3. So this is the little RSS symbol that is output by the feed syndication module. Now if we go back to our code, this is our category view. And really, I mean, what I've done here is just looked at what content does and follow the same guidelines. You need to inherit from this class. You need to set up the params because that is expected within this class, and then you add this feed. And what you do when you add that feed is what you're doing. I'll just turn that off. Click on reload and go to inspector and going into the head. So what it does is it just sets up these two links in the head, and you can see these are links to the RSS and Atom feeds, and those links in the head are what the little syndication feed module looks for. And when it sees those links that are set up with that add feed, that's when it decides that it should put out this little module here. Next is our new feed file. So whenever we have this, close this. Whenever we have this URL here, a new tab, so you see the URL. And we've got the format equals feed and type equals RSS. So it's going to be handled in the same way by Joomla. It's going to be coming into that same view, but it's going to look for a feed file. So it's going to be looking for, rather than something which is .html, .php as here, it's going to be looking for view.feed.php. But it's still going to be looking to run the display, and the display method is going to be found in this, and I've just opened it up in Notepad++. This is the newer version of it, and here's our display method. So this is what is run whenever you click on that little RSS feed, and you can see it's doing some stuff at the top. It's finding the content type based on the extension, which is com hello world, and the view name, which we set here. And with that detail, it's going into that content types table within our database. I'm just going to reload this phpMyAdmin. And our content types table is where we put our hello world record and the particular mapping fields which mapped, for example, from our greeting field to the title field. So whenever we are looking for the title field to put into the RSS here, it's going to pick it up from the greeting field. And that's because it's mapped through this UCM record here. Get some more stuff here, and then it calls get items. So it's really using the same model as we use for the category model. So we need to make sure that within that category model, we set up all of the data that is required. So down in our model here, we're adding in the description and the image. And then for each item, it's going to find the key items, key fields from that item, and then add them to this feed item, and then add the process that as a feed item. But it's got this call up top, and this is where it enables us, or allows us, to change what gets put into some of those key fields. And this is where we've overridden this within our code to use our own function here, which just really puts the image details, embeds that within the description. So whenever we go along to somewhere here, this is the total description, including the image which appears. And I think that's about it. The only other thing that it requires is, back up here, it requires this get category. It does a couple of checks on the category and then uses the category title. So that's why we need to put into our code this function down the bottom for getting the category down here. And that's about it really for feeds. Hope you find it interesting. Thanks very much for watching. Bye.